Am I the a-hole for refusing to give up my dog for my dad's fiancée and her son? I'm really upset about this right now. I'm 17 female, my parents divorced when I was 12. It was really rough. They pretty much hate each other and still have trouble doing anything together where I'm concerned. I try not to talk about them to each other and just keep things separate. All the fighting and chaos was hard on me and was affecting my mood and schoolwork when it was all going down. So my dad felt bad and let me have a dog to help me feel better. Someone nearby had a Malamute puppies, so I picked out one and his name is Tycho, or Tycho, and he is my best friend. Even on the weeks that I'm with my mum, I stop by after school every day to take him to the dog park to play and get his cuddles in. I love this dog. My dad started dating Melanie a few years ago. I don't really connect with her, we're just really different, and she's way too touchy. But she makes my dad happy, so whatever. Her son Ben, 9 male, is autistic and needs a lot of accommodations. He gets really upset and has meltdowns when things change or are done differently. He's also really scared of Tycho, even though as far as I know, Tycho has never done anything to scare him. He's a really laid-back and well-behaved dog. Dad and Melanie recently got engaged, and they want to go ahead and move her and Ben in so that they can get rid of their apartment and save money. My dad told me about it and said that since Ben is afraid of Tycho and needs a stable environment at home, Tycho is going to have to go somewhere else. My mum's townhouse doesn't even have room for him, and my grandparents aren't in good enough health to look after a big dog, so we would have to rehome him. I admit that I didn't take it very well, and we had a big fight. I told him that no way I was going to give up my dog, and I'm going to college next year anyway, so they can put off the move until the spring when I can find a place to take him with me. My dad says they need to do the move over the holidays, and Ben is more important than a dog. I told him if he gives away my dog, I'll never forgive him, and that he obviously thinks Ben is more important than me too. My dad is mad because I'm making this a choice between me and his fiancée, basically. Melanie is having second thoughts about the engagement since I don't want to live with them. My mum is mad at my dad and they're fighting again, and I'm afraid to leave Tycho alone because he might not be there when I get back. My aunt says that I'm being childish and my dad deserves to be happy. Am I the a-hole? In the comments, not the a-hole. Your dad shouldn't have given you a dog to take it away later. However, you also need to be prepared. It isn't easy to find a place to take a large dog. If your plan is to bring him with you, you need to be working and saving money. You will likely need to rent a house or a room in a house where they let you have him, and you have vet bills to cover, food, etc. Agree. This is sad, but OP should be prepared that it's going to be very, very difficult as a college student to find a place big enough for such a large dog. Yes, I have a cat, and people even struggle to find rentals with them. Unfortunately, Dad likely got the dog to keep them coming over, but didn't seem to be committed to keeping the dog. Not the a-hole. I usually side with parents, but rehoming your dog because he can't wait 6 months to move his girlfriend into the house seems like he is choosing his girlfriend over his child, and that is a huge no-no. Melanie's son does have a right to feel safe in his own home, but that does not include forcing you to get rid of your dog. That is just not a legitimate thought to have. Maybe Melanie should have second thoughts about your dad. I like this comment because there are so many good points to it. Why wasn't the dog and a compromise conversation happening before? Oh, there was a conversation between Melanie and OP's dad. It went, "You'll get rid of the dog, won't you?" And he says, "Yes, dear." Agreed. OP and her dog were living there first too. Also, a best friend pet can be really important for a teenager's and young adult's mental health, especially considering turbulent past. Since she said they're going to move out quite soon with the dog, the father has multiple options and compromises available, like blocking off a part of the house so the dog can't free roam in the whole house while OP is at school. Just postpone his girlfriend moving in until OP moves out, maybe building necessary structures, dog houses, fences, etc. in the backyard, and keep the dog in the yard during daytime until OP comes back from school and takes over dealing with the dog inside. Obviously only outside when it's not too hot or cold, and that fresh water and housing/kennel for shade is provided. Or something else, you know. Most things in life are compromisable. Well, only if parties involved want to compromise, not just bulldoze over everyone else. And now, on to the update. I talked to my mum and my grandparents after school. I brought Tycho to my mum's place this afternoon, and I'm going to take him to my grandparents tomorrow. I'm going to split time between them and my mum for a while, and my grandparents said that if I go to college nearby, that I can live with them while I study to make sure I don't lose my dog. So I'm going to look at maybe doing 2 years at a local college and then transferring to a university later. I haven't told my dad yet, but I will after I get Tycho settled tomorrow. I already went online and made sure that his chip information is up to date with all of my info and my mum's as backup. Pretty sure all hell is going to break loose, but honestly, I'd do almost anything to not lose my dog, including just not going to college right now, if that's what I have to do. He takes care of me, so I have to take care of him. Update 2. It's been a rough few days. My dad flipped his crap when I told him that I wasn't coming back to his place, and he and my mum are duking it out right now. My mum's lawyer asked me a bunch of questions, and then said not to worry about it. Melanie called to find out what was going on, so I told her that if living with her and Ben means that I lose my dog, I'm just not going to live there anymore. And she tried to talk me out of it because my dad didn't want to lose me, but I told her that's just how it is. I think they're fighting now too. My grandparents said my dad is being totally unreasonable and he's not allowed to come onto their property. Gonna be a fun Christmas. I'm just gonna stay at my grandparents to try and keep my head down until I go back to school. But Tycho seems to like it here. He has a lot more space to run around and still gets to sleep next to my bed, so he's happy at least. Final update. Okay, last update. So, Melanie broke it off with my dad. My dad didn't talk to me for a while, but he finally asked to have lunch, so my grandpa went with me because he wanted to make sure that I was safe and my dad didn't yell at me. My dad apologized for trying to make me give up Tycho and still wants to come back home. I told him that I would come visit, but I'm still afraid that he'll take my dog. Living with my grandparents has also been really nice. It's quiet, they appreciate me helping out with the farm, and my grandma is teaching me how to cook. He wasn't happy, but he said he understood, and we worked out a plan for me to visit for dinner a few days on the weeks that used to be his weeks, and I'm dropping to see my mum most days on her weeks, but spending most of my time with my grandparents. I got a scholarship to the local branch of the state university, and it's only an hour in some away and has the degree program that I want. So I think I'm going to go there for at least the first 2 years. I'm going to talk to admissions about getting a waiver from living on campus since I'm helping my grandparents. Both my parents are going to chip in on an allowance for me and Tycho while I'm in school. My mum says my grandparents can relax more and are feeling better with me there. Also, they love Tycho being around now too, so it's the best option for everyone, and I'll be able to budget for vet visits and everything. My dad is still mad at my mum and Melanie, but he doesn't want me to miss out on college, and he seems to be more himself after the first week of visits. Thank you all for the advice. I am so relieved this has worked out. I have had hella anxiety over Christmas about all of this, but I get to keep Tycho. Things are mending with my dad, and I'm on track for college. My girlfriend invited her ex over to my apartment, and I am absolutely livid right now. So I live in a big city in my own apartment. My girlfriend Lily lives with her roommates, but if I'm being honest, she basically lives over here 80% of the time. Early today/yesterday, while I was at the gym with my friend Mike, she texted me that she had an old friend that she hasn't seen in a while that's in town, and that it would be nice to have a quiet place to catch up. I said they could use my apartment and that I would go out for dinner with Mike so they would have time to catch up. During this time, I'm at the gym, so I was in a rush. I didn't ask who she was inviting over, etc. Well, apparently I should, as the old friend she was apparently catching up with alone in my apartment was her only ex-boyfriend, Kyle. Around 30-ish minutes after this conversation, I get a text from her saying that they are at the apartment. I just said bet and continued with my friend. Mike and I finished our workout around 7 p.m. and decided we'd go to Whole Foods as their hot/salad bars got some great food. We ate there and we finished at around 8:30-ish. I'm on my way home now, and honestly, I wasn't expecting anything other than just saying hi and heading my ass to bed. It had been a long-ass day, and honestly, I was just ready to get some sleep. I arrive home around 9 p.m., and at this point, I had no idea if her friend was still over or not. I was secretly hoping that they weren't, as I didn't feel like socializing at all, but hey, I'll take one for the team. When I walked in the apartment, I see some big-ass Timberland boots that obviously are a man's. I'm immediately like, damn, her friend brought her boyfriend. I'm gonna have to stay up and socialize now. I take off my shoes and jacket, and I start heading down the mini hallway. As I enter the living area, I see my girlfriend sitting on the couch with a man at separate ends, but staring right at each other talking. My girlfriend notices me and jumps a little. I didn't really find this odd at the time, but now I think back on it, it makes sense. At this point, I'm still completely oblivious. I say hello and start walking towards the man. I'm looking around the house at this point for her friend. Honestly, I just thought that she was in the bathroom or some crap. I shake the guy's hand and said some crap like, hey, I'm Lily's boyfriend. He replied back in like a cocky-ass way with some, I'm Kyle, Lily's ex. I was like, oh, my fault. I thought you were her friend's boyfriend. Then it got a little quiet, and I rapidly come to the realization that my girlfriend has been alone with her ex in my apartment for the last couple hours. I look at my girl and say, so I'm taking this was your old friend? And she said yeah, in a soft-ass voice. At this point, I wasn't letting myself jump to any conclusions, but I'm tired and I don't feel like socializing. I'm also now upset my girl was just chilling with her ex in my apartment. It got quiet again, and these two made zero effort to continue whatever convo they were having just moments ago. Lily asks how my day was, and I was like, it was fine, I guess. Again, getting the vibe that I'm interrupting something. At this point, I'm fed up. Only like a minute or so had passed since my question to her, and I look at him and ask, Kyle, hey, do you mind ending it here for today? I've actually got some things that I gotta talk to Lily about. He replied with, she invited me over though, and we're still reminiscing on the good old days. I look at Lily and she can't even look me in the eyes. I look back at Kyle and say, alright, let me rephrase it. This is my apartment, and I'm telling you to leave. He then looks at her and says, do you want me to leave? At this point, I'm not proud of it, but I completely lose my crap, saying, what the hell do you mean by that? I don't give a crap if she wants you to leave or not. I'm telling you to get the hell out of my house. Lily is telling me to calm down and turns and tells him that he needs to leave. Kyle gets up and heads towards the hallway to get his crap. I follow and he ends up leaving. I come back and Lily is now pissed at me, saying that I embarrassed her. I embarrassed you? She then goes on about how my reaction is totally uncalled for, as she told me that he was coming over and asked. I was like, no, Lily, you said an effing friend was coming over. A frickin' friend. Not once you mentioned this friend was a male, much less your frickin' ex. She then says that my reaction was bullcrap and that I acted like an ass. I tell her, you were with your frickin' ex in my apartment. Do you not understand how much of an F you that comes across as? I then asked why the F y'all were meeting in the first place, and she tells me that he's going through rough times, and he needs someone to lean on, and that she just wanted to be there for him as he's a nice person, and that by hanging with him in my apartment, it shows that nothing shady is going on. I explain how that is bullcrap, and that if my ex started having issues and I was the one comforting her, she would be pissed. She was like, no, she'd understand because she has empathy. I was like, that's bullcrap, Lily. You got pissed at me at the gym because I smiled when a girl complimented my form when I was lifting. She then was like, she's done talking, and stormed out. I didn't say anything. I didn't chase. I have not reached out. I just sat on the couch and thought about what the F just happened. I then called my father, who gave me some great advice. She then texted me these 2 hours ago. Can we talk? I'm sorry for not telling you that it was my ex that I invited who was coming over. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Nothing happened. Nothing is going to happen. I love you. He messaged me out of the blue that he needed someone to talk to. I didn't think that much of it. I'm sorry for deceiving you. That sounds like BS, right? I didn't think much of it then, followed by sorry for deceiving you, like obviously you did think about it or you would have been truthful. I wanted to talk to him at your place because I didn't want you to assume something else was going on. Please talk to me. I love you. Obviously, if she sees this, she'll know that I'm talking about us, but she doesn't use Reddit. I haven't responded yet. I'm leaning towards wanting to break things up with her after talking about it with my pops. Not for her talking to him, but for how I felt in the moment that it was all happening. It's a huge red flag for me that she said old friend instead of ex. I still don't get it. In the moment of me getting visibly upset with her ex, she didn't take my side once. When I was nice before I even recognized him, it felt like I was the odd man out. I just felt like she doesn't respect me. Not on some 1950s crap where the woman has to respect the man, but if the roles were reversed and I was with my ex at her house, I would have backed my girl when she was getting mad. I would have called my ex out for talking cocky to my girl, etc. I'm still very pissed, so I don't think that I should be talking to her right now. It's currently at around 3 a.m. Honestly, I'm just freaking tired. I don't even know if I'm pissed. Edit 1, it's currently 12:44 p.m. It's already been a long effing day, and will continue to be a long effing day. I've seen your comments and I'll update tonight or tomorrow, depending on what the F ends up fully playing out. It's been a half-assed level of a day so far. I'm on like 3 hours of sleep. P.S. I added paragraphs. The whole writing thing was just my typing the words from thoughts last night that I had no idea so many would view. In the comments, she lied by omission. Flip the situation. The girlfriend would be livid too. Her ex in your apartment equals no respect for your living space, no respect for you. Her actions show what she thinks of you. Some people enjoy this kind of drama in their relationships. She put comforting her ex before your comfort, knowledge, and consent, etc. I'm sorry, but what she did is so crappy. And what did the girlfriend and the ex talk about that got him so cocky and confident, I would dump her. She not only respected her boyfriend, she also let her ex disrespect him. Yeah, I support dumping her too. Look at the bright side. If you hit a rough patch in the future, you can count on your soon-to-be ex to lean on. Agreed. I don't normally like to rush to a breakup, but this is straight-up disrespect. She's untrustworthy, in my opinion, and swaying her choices. If it were me, I would break up with her. She intentionally misled you. Nothing might have happened, but by withholding information on who she's meeting up with was a red flag. The ex also was rude, and she basically just let him disrespect you. If it was as innocent as she said that it was, he wouldn't have been cocky in the first place, and she wouldn't have sat back and let her ex disrespect her man. She couldn't even look him in the eye, and she was jumpy from the minute that he walked through the door. That's a massive red flag for me. She looks guilty. I do wonder if the ex knew that he was meeting in the boyfriend's place. Poor guy though, he handled it as well as he could. I'd feel violated if this was to happen to me in my house. And now, on to the update. It is currently around 7 p.m. when writing this, and honestly, the last 13-ish hours that I've been up have been freaking draining to say the least. I awoke in the morning to my phone going absolutely nuts with notifications from Reddit. I'm honestly like, oh F, why the actual F did I decide to pour my personal feelings out into a Reddit post? I began to scroll y'all's comments, and to say that I was shocked is an absolute understatement. Literally, almost all of y'all are actively taking my side, and I mean, I was just scrolling this morning, just looking for the one comment that was taking hers, but it did not come. What surprised me the most were the amount of women in this thread that said they would never do this to their man, and that it is beyond disrespectful. I mean, those comments hit the hardest this morning, as those were exactly my thoughts. Last night was a freaking stress storm for me, to be honest. I couldn't believe what the F had just happened. As y'all can guess from my post, I live alone, so there wasn't anyone at my crib that I could talk to, so I decided to call the one man that's had my back since day one, my pops. As many have messaged and many have commented, I'll go into detail on what exactly our phone call entailed. First, I'm gonna go back to when it originally happened, so that it makes more sense. Also, when reading back my thoughts from last night, it was clear that I was rushing at the end, and honestly just fed up with everything at that point, so I skipped over a lot of details. Okay, to start, Lily had just stormed out of my apartment at this point when I called her out that she wouldn't be effing okay with me meeting with my ex because they needed someone to lean on. Like I said before, I didn't call out, text, or follow her. At this point, I am freaking furious, and I can't believe what the F just happened. I take a seat on the couch and try breathing exercises. I am trying to calm down, but it's no use because I keep remembering Kyle asking, "Do you want me to leave?" to my girlfriend. I didn't really elaborate on this beforehand, but that crap sent me to another world, and I was absolutely about to lose my crap to the max. I just kept telling myself it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. At this point, all I want to do is beat Kyle's ass, and all my methods for calming myself down were failing at this point. I just said F it and picked up my phone and said, "Siri, call old man." I honestly didn't know what I was going to say at this point, but I knew that if there was one person who could get me through it, it would be my pops. Now, I don't remember the exact dialogue that exactly went down, but I'm gonna try my best to be as accurate as possible. Phone dialing. Dad picks up and says, "I seen it already. Vooch dropped 43 on their ass." I started laughing a bit and said, "It's not about that, Dad. I just got into a huge freaking fight with Lily, Dad. I'm really effing pissed, Dad. I don't want to do anything stupid." Whoa, okay. Where are you right now? Are you with her? Are you guys okay?" says Dad. "I'm at the crib right now and she's just stormed out. Yes, I'm chilling. I just don't know what to do." There's a long pause after this, and I hear my pops take a deep breath and say, all right, hit me." I began to give him the same rundown that I gave you guys in my last post. The whole time my pops is dead silent, doesn't say a frickin' word. I finished up the story, and all he asked was, "What does Kyle look like?" I won't lie, this caught me off guard, cause I was like, "Damn, Dad, why the hell does it matter what he looks like?" I responded with, I don't know, he was white with long curly hair, etc. Why? And my dad was like, no, how tall was he? At this point, I'm like, WTF, Dad? I don't know, his ass was like 5'9" max. My dad laughs a bit and says, "Explain the Timberlands then. Frickin' male equivalents of heels." I didn't realize it yesterday, but what my pops was doing was what he always does. I literally can't stay pissed if I laugh, and my dad can make me laugh on demand. I started laughing, I was like, you right. And then he was like, "How much you think he weighed?" I had to think for a minute, but I was like, maybe $155-ish? My pops then brought up the argument between Kyle and I. "You said Lily told Kyle to leave after you started to get mad, right?" "Yeah," I responded. My dad pauses for a long time and takes another deep breath. I wouldn't be surprised if this situation is a lot deeper than it seems. It speaks volumes to me that she only rallied for him to leave after you began to get real upset. You're 6 foot tall, 190 pounds, and were just disrespected in your own house by a man that you do not know. When a woman cares for someone, the last thing she wants is for him to be in harm's way. She understood exactly what was going to happen if the situation continued to escalate, and she chose to get Kyle out of harm's way, followed by switching all the blame to you and leaving. Honestly, son, where do you think she's at right now? I didn't say anything. I knew what he was implying. And he says, "I know it hurts, but promise me you won't do anything irrational. She made her decision. There's not much you can do to change it. You've proven your whole life you are one of one. Don't lose yourself now over something that'll just end up a tiny bump on your roadmap. I mean, seriously, I couldn't be more freaking proud of you, son. You're 22, living on your own in the city. You got your crap together. That's rare, my man. You are rare. The right women, like your mum for me, will walk into your life when you least expect it. Don't waste your energy. Everything happens for a reason, son." I paused for a minute and said, "Thank you. I needed this, Dad." My dad laughed and said, "Of course. Your mum and I are here for you, always," and ends the call. Fast forward back to this morning. I couldn't sleep for crap last night, so this morning was just completely arse. Lily was blowing up my phone the whole night, apologizing and begging for my forgiveness. It's around 11 a.m. at this point, and I'm just completely over this situation. I still haven't responded to her since she stormed off last night. In my opinion, she made her choice. However, I got a long-ass week ahead of me, and I can't be having this crap continue to impact me this much going forward. I eat something and head down to my apartment's local gym to just run. On lifting days, I go to a private gym, and on cardio days, I use the apartment's gym. Running is therapeutic for me. Around 1 o'clock, I got a phone call, and you guessed it, it was from Lily. No part of me wanted to pick up the phone, but we've been dating for 2.5 years. I felt obligated. Picks up phone? What's up? I say, to be immediately met with crying. I'm sorry, OP. I love you to death. Please just talk to me. I should have left last night. I panicked. You know I love you, OP. I didn't say anything, OP. Please talk to me. This isn't right. Please just talk to your girlfriend. I'm sorry. I told you nothing happened. I won't ever talk to him again. Please. I beg, can we just talk? At this point, the realization of my feelings for her started to really kick in. Instead of anger, sorrow, or any emotion, to be honest, I just felt a complete sense of indifference when she spoke. I responded, "Can you come over at around 3?" Still crying at this point, she says, "Yes, yes, yes, yes." "Okay," I say, and I end the call. I'm just sitting on the sofa now at this time, just waiting for 3 to roll around, scrolling through the comments on my previous post. Knock knock, I hear from the hallway. Shortly after, I see my girlfriend emerge from the mini hallway. She begins to start smiling and crying while wiping her tears. Again, I take notice of how I feel at this moment, a sense of indifference, a feeling that I don't care about anymore. It really started to hit me. 2.5 years wasted just like that. The woman who I cared so deeply for just 24 hours before now is now in front of me crying, and I don't feel a thing. "Lily, it's over between us," I said. Completely shocked, she barely manages to mutter out, "What?" while still crying. "It's over," I repeated. OP, 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 no, 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 please. I'm sorry. Don't end this between us. I love you to death, she said hysterically. Now, I won't lie, that last bit hit me hard. I mean frickin' hard, man. I couldn't mask it anymore. The lid had been broken. Don't end this between us, I say? Lily, I'm sorry, but I can't take this crap anymore. I don't know what impression I gave you over our relationship, but I won't stay in a relationship with a woman who thinks that effing little of me. You made the decision to end crap between us when inviting your ex to my apartment behind my freaking back, Lily. That is something I refuse to let slide, Lily. At this point, my thoughts just begin to flow out of my mouth like a freaking tidal wave. No man is that cocky for no reason, Lily. I am not an effing fool, Lily. You gave him some type of reassurance to give him the confidence to act like that. Crap, you even backed him in front of me. Like, why the F would I stay with someone who is not going to have my back? Absolutely bawling at this point, Lily says, "I'm sorry, OP. I love you. I'm sorry." Y'all can call me whatever you want, but at this point, I just went soft. I didn't have the heart to keep drilling her anymore. She was just breaking down crying uncontrollably. I just sat down in silence. "OP, I'm sorry, it won't happen again, OP. I love you. Only you. I won't ever talk to him again. I won't. I promise, OP. Please just give me one more chance," said Lily. I'm completely silent. I mean, there was just a huge freaking pressure on my chest. It felt like my ribcage was gonna crack under the pressure. Sat there silently listening to her crying, I remembered one of my favorite songs. I'd rather have loyalty than love, 'cause love really don't mean jack. See, love's just a feeling. You can love somebody and still stab them in the back. It don't take much to love. You can love somebody just by being attached. See, loyalty is an action. You can love or hate me and still have my back. But late and great 21 Savage. I just kept repeating those lyrics in my head over and over and over again. To many, it might seem that she said all the right things, but to me, actions speak louder than words. Last night, she chose to make her decision on us through her actions, and since actions speak louder than words, it really didn't matter what she said. I'm struggling to keep it together at this point. I really did love her, and crap, I still do, but I understood that this was what's best for me. I wouldn't have been able to trust her again. You can't be in a relationship without trust or loyalty, and I lost both from her. As she cries, I look up and say, "Lily, please. It's over. There is no saving this." And she looks at me and says, "OP." And I say, "No, please, just stop. It's over, Lily." I interrupt. "Please, just do us both a favor and take your things and leave, Lily. It's over. Please just let it end here." She doesn't say anything and gets up and starts grabbing some of her things around the apartment. I grabbed a garbage bag and helped her pack. She left the keys to my apartment on the table and left. This all finished up around 4:30 today. I've just been sitting here trying to process what the F just happened. Honestly, it all still doesn't feel real. I never intended on posting on Reddit yesterday, but I just needed a place to effing vent, and since it blew up, I felt like I should update y'all today. It's 7:35 as I finish writing this. I'm freaking hurt. The weight of what the F just went down over the last 24 hours does not feel real. To anyone who actually read this long-ass update, thank you. To those who commented on my previous post, thank you. I freaking needed a place to vent last night. And in the comments, what Dad said was right. She diffused the situation, but for who? Where did she go after she stormed out? Why would any sane person with a tiny bit of self-respect stay in that? Good on you, OP. Stay strong. There is no love without trust. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. OP says, I tried to be as transparent as possible and show both sides to the best of my ability. What y'all read was my raw emotion. Over the last month, I've picked up journaling on my self-improvement journey. It really helps understand your own thoughts. Last night, I decided to post to this sub instead of my notes app. I appreciate the kind words that you all have given me. I'm going to continue to work on myself and push forward. Your dad's words about keeping someone she cares about out of harm's way really hit me, because my first thought on your original post was that she really screwed up by waiting too long to have your back and to tell him to leave. The whole situation is a heartbreaking display of disloyalty, and I hope that you continue to talk with your dad if you feel overwhelmed, because he seems like a great shoulder to lean on. Please don't ever think that you are soft for expressing how you feel. As a woman, I know we tend to be encouraged to be in touch with our feelings much more than men, but you probably know by now that bottling that crap up is harmful. So proud of your journaling journey, and I hope you find someone that will give you the love and loyalty that you deserve someday. I thought the same thing. That whole thing could have just been poor judgment on her part, but I want to clarify that I do not think that if it had been a mistake, that she deserved forgiveness. Mistakes may not be intentional, but their consequences are real, and I got the sense that there was not going to be any coming back from this. His dad's view floored me, because even if I was right, this was all poor judgment on her part. He's still right. Her response was so telling of who she wanted to protect. I just caught my girlfriend having sex with my dad. So to start, I, male 22, have been with my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend Kate, fake name, female 21, for just shy of 3 years. Our relationship throughout the 3 years has been amazing. She had always been kind and supportive and very open and honest with me. We had dates often, our love-making life was great, we had very few arguments, but when we did get into a disagreement, we managed to communicate and come to an understanding before long. I believed our relationship to be healthy and loving, but apparently I was wrong. On to the story. About a week ago, I had started to notice that Kate was becoming very touchy about me being on or around her phone. This was odd to me because not only had she always let me use her phone to make calls if mine was flat or I didn't have immediate access to mine, but she had also downloaded games for me to play on her phone so she could distract me when she wanted to watch her shows. Kate began snapping at me for asking to borrow her phone or snatching it out of my hand if I was so much as moving it away from the edge of the counter so that it wouldn't fall. And whenever I questioned her behavior, she just brushed it off and explained she was just in a bad mood. Her constant dismissal of my noticeable confusion began to annoy me, so I asked her if she was hiding anything from me, which led to an argument about her saying that I was accusing her of infidelity and not trusting her, and began trying to get physical with me in case I shut the argument down, and I told her to sleep in the guest bedroom. She was very angry about it, but I told her that we would talk about it in the morning. When we did talk about it, she apologized for her behavior and gave me her phone. I told her I trusted her and I didn't need to go through it, and to be frank, I did trust her, and I believed her outburst to be due to the ongoing stress at work, which was clearly stupid of me. The next day I noticed she had gotten a missed call from my father. I had never known my father to like Kate, or even to have contact at that. In fact, I was convinced they both disliked each other. At any and every family event, they would often argue or make snarky remarks at one another until we would have to leave due to the tense atmosphere that they had created. So I decided to ask Kate why my father had called her. She physically froze and mumbled an excuse about it being my birthday soon, and he had planned something. But my father and I were never very close, so I didn't understand why he would. But I played it off and decided to go about my day. Then the following night, I had texted her explaining that I had a late shift and I would be back at around 10 p.m. latest, which I did. We ended up being dismissed early due to an incident regarding our manager and a few staff, and so I was heading home by 7 p.m. I tried calling her, but she had her phone off, so I assumed that it had gone flat or she had turned it off, which she does often at home. When I made it home, I noticed my father's car 2 houses down from ours, and so I tried calling him, but his phone was also turned off, which I found odd because my mother likes his phone to be on so that she can call him when she needs him, as she's handicapped. I assumed my mother was with him, so I opened the door quietly to surprise her as I haven't seen her in a while, and I was met with the sight of my girlfriend bent over the kitchen counter with my father behind her. They both froze and started profusely yelling and telling me that it wasn't what it looked like and that they could explain. But I shut and locked the door from the outside with a deadbolt and made my way to a friend's house. Since then, they have both been blowing up my phone, apologizing and begging me not to say anything to anyone. And quite frankly, I'm just disgusted. Disgusted in my father, who is turning 60 next month and has my mother to take care of, and disgusted in Kate, who was getting railed by my father for who knows how long. I honestly just want to throw up and set both of them on fire, but I'm most worried about how my mother will take this situation, as she is very dependent on my father and adores him. How should I go about this? I don't need closure or to confront them. I don't want to know how their gross relationship started or how long it's been going on for. I just need advice on how to approach the situation without causing a bigger mess than there already is. Any advice is welcome, and thank you for reading. In the comments, not that you need any explanation, I am very curious to know what they intended it to look like. Whatever excuse they give is surely going to be made up. They would look really silly to themselves about the excuse that they make up. I would rather go on thinking that, oh, your dad stopped over to show me a few new positions we could try out, or that it was an accident and that dad came over to make amends since you both were heading towards a committed relationship. And by accident, as they made amends, his zipper became undone and ended up stabbing her from behind, or that he just came over to give her his blessing. Whatever the case is, I am sorry that you are going through this. Remember, it is not your fault. It takes two to tango, and both of them are equally to blame. You don't deserve this. OP replies, I love this. Gave me a good laugh about it. Thank you for your support. I just can't comprehend how these things can happen. What does Kate get from your 60-year-old father that you, a younger version of him, can't provide? I tend to process things with logical thinking, and I just can't understand how this could have happened. Does she have financial issues, or is there any reason for her to do this to you? And now on to the update. As per someone's advice, I asked my mother to lunch, and after some small talk, I informed her of the situation. She was understandably upset and in denial about the situation, as my father had spoken to her prior about me still holding a grudge, a story for another time, and that I would be likely to come up with a lie to turn her against him for revenge. But after showing her the messages that they had sent afterward, she was distraught and visibly angry about the ordeal. I then asked her if she would still be comfortable with me sending an email to our relevant family members and Kate's parents and siblings, and while she was a little reluctant about it, she had said that she didn't want the backlash from his family for leaving him. I then did just that. I sent an email explaining the situation, that my mother and I would be going no contact with both Kate and my father, and low contact with anyone who gave either of us any grief for our decision. Now she is staying with her older sister, while I'm with a close mate until we can figure out a stable living situation for us both. After the email was sent, there was radio silence for a day or two before both my mother and I were bombarded with a mix of messages that I'll just summarize in small paragraphs. Kate's parents were evidently enraged that I accused their daughter of such a thing, and that they would be suing me for defamation on their daughter's behalf. I then took the liberty of sending them the screenshots from both Kate's and my father's messages, and they left me on scene for a couple of days before replying to me and informing me that while they wouldn't sue me, they would appreciate if I kept the situation under wraps. My father was the first to message my mother, attempting to convince her that I staged the messages and that I was being petty and lying. And when she wouldn't believe him, he accused her of cheating on him and trying to find a way out of their marriage, which evidently isn't possible for my mother, as she has trouble getting from place to place on her own. He then apologized and told her that he was just frustrated and asked to see her, and when she declined, he again accused her of cheating and staying with her lover, all the while abandoning him. My maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents had very different messages, and not in the way that I thought they would. My paternal grandparents apologized for his behavior and told my mother that if she needed support in the future, they were available, and informed her they would be disowning and going no contact with my father. My maternal grandparents, however, despite being the people that raised her, told her that due to her injury and not being able to fulfill her husband's needs, it was only right of him to look elsewhere for fulfillment, and while they understood that it was wrong because it was my partner, Kate was available for him, and my mother should forgive him and move on. They also made a point to state that my mother needs my father more than he needs her. Kate's two older sisters reached out and thanked me for telling them and informed us that if we, my mother and I, needed any assistance in the future in regards to my mother's health, as one is an elderly caretaker and the other is a physiotherapist, that they are willing to help. These aren't all the messages, but they are the relevant ones. I'll make a part 2 so this post doesn't get too long. Part 2, continuation of my previous updates. My mother and I gave ourselves a few days to get through all the messages and phone calls and blocked my maternal grandparents as well as my father. My mother didn't already have him blocked. I contacted my landlord and real estate agent and informed them briefly of the situation, and I was no longer living on the premises and that I would like to have my name taken off the lease. Luckily, our lease was being renewed in that coming week, and the next day they contacted Kate to inform her that I had taken my name off the lease for the following month, and in the next week, if she was unable to take on my portion of the rent, she would have 3 months to vacate the property. I don't know how she reacted, but I could tell that it wasn't overly ecstatic, as her parents contacted me and asked if, despite everything, I would be willing to pay for her rent just for this month, because she doesn't have the money for it at the moment. Obviously, I declined and told them that I no longer want anything to do with her anymore. They then informed me that she was pregnant with my child and needed assistance from the father of her baby, and that this would be a last goodbye. I then laughed and told them I most definitely was not the father of that baby if she was pregnant, and if she needed assistance from her baby daddy to contact my father. Then I hung up and blocked them. On a brighter note, my mother and I have just put a down payment on a house together and are looking into hiring a caregiver to help my mother for when I have to work or trips out of state. My father has attempted to call both of us from multiple phone numbers and had multiple family members try to persuade my mother into meeting up with him to chat. And as a result, my mother and I have gotten a new phone numbers to avoid his mess. I also happened to hear from a mate that Kate is trying to hire a lawyer so that she can get child support money from me, but apparently because she has no proof that I'm the father and refuses to take a DNA test to the baby, she hasn't had any luck. Edit 1, I forgot to mention it above as I didn't too tired to initiate due to work commitments, and at the time, I assumed that she was as well, but it's likely that her needs were met by either my father or other parties. And edit 3, something else that I forgot to mention. Yes, I did get a test for STIs and UTIs and any sorts of infections that I may not be aware of, and all tests came back negative, so I'm in the clear in that space. In the comments, so many sucky people in this story, but I think the dad is worse than all the rest of them put together. He's betrayed his wife and his son in the worst possible way, and then he has the gall to harass his ex-wife trying to get back with her. Dad is definitely #1 villain. Kate is #2 villain, and Mum's parents are actually probably tied for #2 villain. Horrible people. Lamau? God damn, this is horrible. Dude's about to have a baby brother. Damn, that's a situation. Waiting for the update in 5 years when OP asks, am I the a-hole for not going to my half-brother's birthday party? Or in 10 years, when he asks, am I the a-hole for telling my half-brother why I don't talk to our dad? And in 15 years, am I the a-hole for not taking my half-brother in because my dad just passed away and his mother had taken off a few years back? My uncle was in a similar situation. His wife ended up leaving him for his dad, and they took the kids too. My uncle shot himself not long after. I've got no sympathy for those people. The audacity of this woman. She wants him to pay child support but won't do a DNA test? I would have a canned response to any flying monkeys that come by. I would be more than happy to fulfill my obligations as a child's dad, but only after paternity has been proven, since girlfriend has been screwing my dad, my goddamn dad, for months. I'm getting that she got your personal life and your mum's, but could you pretty please cough up a few $100s to give to her as a final goodbye for my girlfriend after her friends came along? So my girlfriend, Sarah 29, and I, M 28, have been dating for 5 years, and I wanted to go on a vacation with her to celebrate. I planned the trip for several months. Of course, I shared my plans with her and decided on skiing, snowboarding, and other winter activities in Colorado. The activities seemed perfect, and I was looking forward to this for months because I wanted to propose to her at the end of the trip. 5 days before the trip, Sarah dropped the ball on me that she invited 2 of her friends to meet her there. I was upset because I wanted to spend one-on-one time with Sarah for our anniversary. I feel like it was plain and clear that this was a trip just for us. Even though I expressed my concerns, Sarah insisted that her friends already made plans to come and won't back out. I decided to accept this because there was no way for me to force her friends to not come, and I wish I fought more on this. I figured we could make some changes to our plans, and I would still be able to propose to her privately. Sarah essentially blew me off for her friends, and we didn't get any private time. After 3 days of being in second place, I decided to leave the trip and head home. I told Sarah why I was leaving, and she was upset. She told her friends about my decision, and I was ganged up on. They said that we were all having a great time. She thinks I'm being a jerk for making her pick between her friends and me, even though her friends weren't invited in the first place. I never had personal issues with her friends prior to this trip. I never made Sarah pick between me or her friends because everyone needs friends outside of a relationship. I'm at home now and thinking about everything. I have a day to myself before Sarah comes home, so at least I get to relax a bit. Sarah and her friends think that I'm overreacting and think that I ruined the trip. I think Sarah was disrespectful and rude to me by ruining the purpose of this trip and having her friends gang up on me. Am I the a-hole for leaving a vacation I planned for my girlfriend after her friends came along? Edit. This was a planned anniversary/romantic trip. I was clear that we have plans for just us two. We've been on other anniversary trips together without her friends there. We did discuss marriage beforehand, so it's not like a proposal wouldn't have been out of the blue. In the comments, not the a-hole. You sure you still want to propose? This, even if it wasn't a proposal trip, it was so disrespectful of Sarah to basically pull the rug out from under him and get her friends to gang up. To do that to someone you've dated for 5 years? Jeez. I would sit her down and go through the plans you had, including the proposal. Watch the Pikachu face, and then tell her that you need time apart to evaluate the relationship. I just hope that she stumbles upon this thread, honestly. I just can't understand why she would think that it was appropriate to invite her friends to a romantic trip, firstly, and secondly, why she didn't run it past OP before doing it. What a selfish, inconsiderate, rude, and ungrateful act. And then once she forced him to accept it, she leaves him out of things in favor for her friends, who then all gang up and gaslight him, accusing him of ruining the holiday. Like, how dare they? I'm glad that he has his friends with him to support and deal with these rude, selfish, ungrateful, gaslighting girls. Then maybe it's best to put the engagement on hold for now, and then review the relationship in peace away from her, so that you can get a better perspective. For alone time, and she rebuffed those efforts to hang out as a group with her friends. Buddy, she found the ring and knew your plan for the weekend. Not the a-hole. You might want to consider planning for a different future. I'm betting this too. She didn't want to have to say no. In my opinion, it's time to move on. She invited friends on a romantic getaway without consulting you or considering your feelings. Sad if true. Imagine treating someone you've been with for 5 years this way. She could have grown a spine and broken up with him. Info. Is it possible that she knew you were going to propose and did this intentionally to avoid it? And OP says, this is what worries me. We discussed marriage beforehand and everything seemed great. This was a planned anniversary and romantic trip, so the nature of it was plain and clear. Oh God, not the a-hole, and please dump her. Don't let someone like her hold you back. Back up to the post, we have a minor update. My friends are here at the house and they have been running potential interference, just in case her friends try to bombard and harass me. They've been great and I am so glad to have them. Minor update number 2, none of Sarah's friends came by the house or harassed me yesterday and last night, which is good. Sarah hasn't come home yet. I figured out what I want to say and I have written it out. And now onto the update. I decided that I wanted to end this entire relationship. I packed my important belongings, example, passport, clothes, and arranged with my best friend to crash at his apartment until I can find my own. Usually when small issues happen in a relationship, it ties into a bigger issue of that relationship. The main reason why I decided to break up is because I realized that her friends will always be closer to her than me. Sarah has favored her friends over me and has blown off some of our plans for her friends more than once. I was lying to myself for years because I didn't want to face reality yet. I had hoped that she would change, but this trip really opened my eyes that I will always be in third place to her. I expressed my feelings multiple times, and Sarah promised that she would change, and she didn't. Sarah came home late yesterday. I said that I have a lot to get off my chest, and I want to get through my notes before she talks or tries to interrupt me. The first question I asked Sarah was how she thought the trip went. She said that we all had fun and it was memorable. I shouldn't have to feel like the third wheel in my own relationship, especially on a trip that I planned. My next question was, why did you invite your friends in the first place? You knew this was an anniversary trip for us. She talked about the trip with her friends since the beginning, and they have never been to Colorado. She thought that it would be a good idea to allow them to come, just so they can have fun in Colorado with us. I followed up with my lack of knowledge of her friends coming along until days before. It's one thing if they came and did their own activities, but it's another thing that every activity became a group activity. I signed up for a monogamous, not poly relationship. My last question was, did you know that I was going to propose to you? Sarah said she didn't know at all. The thought never occurred to Sarah that I was going to ask. She claimed that she wouldn't have invited her friends to come along if she knew, but I responded that it would ruin the surprise if I told you. Sarah begged me to stay with her and believes we can work everything out. She didn't want me to throw 5 years away after this one bad trip. I listened to her promises to change for years regarding her friends, but nothing happened. I ultimately left Sarah with this. It's clear that there isn't enough room in your heart for your boyfriend and your friends. As much as I love Sarah, I can't stay in a relationship where I'm not respected enough. I left Sarah in the house by herself, and I drove off to my friend's place. I'll figure out how to get my name off the lease, and I'll plan to get the rest of my belongings. As for the ring, I will return it this weekend. In the comments, aside from the obvious issues of her behavior, the thing that throws me for the biggest objectives are not my priority, and they never will be, in her actions. I'm sorry that it came to that, but I'm glad your friend is able to help you out, and you were sticking to your own guns on your decision. Hopefully she learns from it, and if not, hopefully it's a situation you only ever have to encounter once in your life. Exactly this. How are you in a 5-year relationship and let your partner leave a trip upset? She sounds pretty callous. OP says, I had much more information in my post, but the character limit was too high. Part of the reason why she stayed back was because I said that I wanted to go home alone and think. I know that couples shouldn't storm off after a fight, but it was kind of important to separate for a bit to gather my thoughts. Maybe things would have turned out differently if we left together. Even if she stayed to give you the space that you asked for, there is no way I would be able to enjoy the trip after my unhappy partner left. Yet she said, "We all had fun, and it was memorable." I think someone commented on your last post that it's clear we didn't include you. 5 years into a relationship, you deserved more consideration. And thanks for the update, and I'm sorry that things ended that way. Wishing you the best. Proud of you for putting your foot down. No one should beg for respect in a relationship. OP replies, I shouldn't have to fight for one-on-one time in a relationship, especially with a serious partner. I left my boyfriend for the same reason. Looking back now, I can only describe him as selfish. You did the right thing for you. Try to enjoy this new chapter. It's going to be fun and a memorable time for sure. OP says, if the tables were turned and I invited my homies, every single person would be against me. You hear stories of friends trying to hang out, and one of them invites their boyfriend to the outing. It sucks that I was put in this position, but I'm glad that it's over. I mean, it's fine to go on trips with groups of friends and for couples to have fun in a larger group, but that's clearly not what you wanted this trip to be, and I think you made that clear enough. Quote, she didn't want me to throw 5 years away after this one bad trip. Ouch. She forgot she was in a relationship with you whilst having the best time with her best friends on a trip planned for her and you. Congrats on stepping up for yourself, dude. May you find someone who truly deserves you. And OP says, I would have hated to waste another 5 years with her too. Too many people give their partners too many chances and end up wasting too much time on them. Exactly this. My therapist has even called me out on this. She told me I'll stay in a relationship until I've given all my love to that person and exhausted myself. It sounds like you left before you exhausted yourself more. Sorry this happened, and I hope for the best for you. OP says, I mainly learned from my aunt. She stayed in a 20-plus year unhappy marriage because she invested so much time in it, had kids with her ex-husband, and she tried to overlook and forgive his actions. I didn't want any of that. She is now much happier. She wished she left years ago because she wasted so much energy on someone who doesn't deserve it. Our next post is titled, My 24 male family caught me being screwed by my boyfriend 25 male. Welp, all I can do right now is find humor in this because it's a weird situation and not something you ever expect to happen to yourself, but I'm coming here to get some advice and ideas on how to mend the situation. Yesterday was my 24th birthday. It's my first birthday out of home as I just got my own place last year. I decided I wanted to spend my birthday alone, aka without the family, and told them that we can go to dinner on the weekend. I wanted to spend my birthday with my boyfriend, just the two of us. It was a great day overall, and me and my boyfriend decided to wind down the night with rough birthday sex. While getting absolutely railed, my family walk into the house, seeing their firstborn and big brother getting used and abused by a mountain of a man. They run off as fast as they can. Birthday is ruined, sex is ruined, family is traumatized, and worst of all, I didn't get to eat the delicious cake that they brought. I have texted and called my parents, but I've got no reply. The only communication I've gotten is a few minutes after the incident was a text from my mother just saying, sorry. I also have not come out to them, so I guess they know now. What would be the best way to handle this? I was thinking probably just give them space and wait for contact from them, and then go from there. Is that a good idea, or no? In the comments, oh my, I might give it a few days. This is why I hate even when family just drops by. Ask first, because I'm not always available even when I am home. I hope this turns into a funny story that you all can laugh at in a few years. And OP says, oh, it'll definitely become a funny story. That's just how my family is. I know my dad was probably grinning ear to ear after the shock wore off, since now he has another embarrassing story about one of his kids. If you chose to get married, maybe he'll share the how we first met my son-in-law as part of his speech. Life hack, skip coming out conversations with a live demonstration. I think the important part here is that you're hanging on to your sense of humor and that this is on them, not you, for barging in unannounced. I guess they just got a reminder of why an emergency key is not meant to be an all-access pass to the house. Out-of-the-box idea? Show up to their house with a cake that says, "I'm gay," and when they let you in, light up some candles and say, "I'll do the honors." Better be a good frickin' cake, though. OP says, "I'm thinking red velvet." And now, on to the update. So my family and I ended up still going out to dinner that weekend, and I also got to bring my boyfriend. Yay. Dad texted me a while after the incident, breaking the ice with, "Birthday sex good?" But we had to talk about some things, and I ended up apologizing to my mother. Apparently, she was upset that I never told her, but my dad knew. All is good on that front now. Dinner went well. I officially came out during and was able to introduce my boyfriend to my family. Dad was in good humor as always. My mother seemed a bit concerned by my boyfriend's size and kept bringing up how big he was, lol. But overall she liked him. Edit, I'm talking about how tall and big he was, not his dick, you perverts. Dad and my boyfriend seem to get along well and have a lot in common, so that's terrible. My siblings are also chill about everything and think that my boyfriend is great too. After dinner, we even stayed at my parents' place for the night, and that went quite well. Everything's looking up and there is no unneeded drama. Thanks again for your advice and your good humor. And now in the comments, when my parents walked in on me and my boyfriend, we weren't even having sex, we'd had sex and were just still naked, they backed out and let us get dressed, and then my mum came in and said, "At least we're cool about this stuff," and told us a story about when my dad's mum walked in on them and she lost the rag. When I met my husband, he still lived at home. His mum quickly started knocking and waiting before opening the door to his room. Before, she'd usually just knock and walk in, being a typical stay-at-home mum spoiling her son. She started spoiling me too though, so I didn't mind. Let's just say my parents worked and had 6 kids to his parents having 2 kids and a stay-at-home mum. They're all good parents, but my mum never came into my room without snacks just to make sure I ate. If I was hungry, I knew where the kitchen was. My mother-in-law was helping my wife clean out a closet a few months ago, and when my wife wasn't paying attention, mother-in-law started working on a second closet just because she was in the zone cleaning, I guess, or snooping. Either way, she regretted it immediately when she came across our stash of bondage gear. Wife says she turned bright red and said, "Well, I don't think I need to help with this closet." I couldn't look her in the eye for weeks. I feel like this whole situation is overshadowed by the distinct lack of cake. Where is the cake, man? Where? Jokes aside, I'm really pleased for you and thrilled that despite the mountainous man's size and apparent ability, you all got along well and made good. Am I the a-hole for making my pregnant wife cry by calling her less of a person? Son that started living with me as his primary guardian when he was 3 and his mum went back to school. I met my wife through work, and I also met her father, who worked at the same company in a higher role than the both of us. My wife knew that I had a son, but I said that I wouldn't introduce them unless we became a serious couple, because that wouldn't be fair to him. When my wife did meet my son, they got along really well. I invited her and her father over for dinner one night, and her father met my son for the first time. He was weird and awkward around my son and made strange comments about his appearance. His mum is black. I confronted him after the dinner, and he made some pretty pathetic excuses. After that, I asked him not to contact me outside of work matters and asked her for space. A couple weeks later, my wife told me that she had completely cut her father off for his beliefs. Our relationship became stronger than ever. When we got engaged, she said she didn't want her father at the wedding. We ended up both transferring to other companies. As far as I knew, he was gone from both of our lives for good. My wife is pregnant and is due in a month. She already has started maternity leave and has been looking for a new job to start after maternity leave because she doesn't want to stay at her current company. Yesterday, she sat me down and told me her dad got her an interview for a job at our old company. She also told me that she has been talking to him for a couple of months and wants to know how I would feel about him knowing our future child. I told her the truth. I told her I felt betrayed, and I felt like she betrayed my son, who she claimed to think of as her son as well. I told her that the fact that she would even ask me that makes her less of a person in my eyes. She started crying and asking me what kind of insensitive jerk would call the woman pregnant with his kid less of a person. I told her that was how I felt, and although the language was harsh, I felt it matched what she was asking for. After cooling off, I'm now unsure if my word choice was warranted, and I'm wondering if I was a butthole for speaking to her that way while she is pregnant and more emotionally vulnerable. I could have just said that I wasn't okay with what she was proposing without insulting her character. In the comments, not the a-hole. As the saying goes, if there's a racist at the table with 10 other people, you have 11 racists. Your father-in-law has shown he's a racist. Even your wife knows that her dad is a racist, as she had cut him off. Your father-in-law has not made any demonstration of repentance, yet your wife wants to invite that toxic presence into your home where it can poison your eldest child. What did she expect you to do and say? You are right that your words were harsh, but harsh was appropriate. It takes a lesser person to want to invite toxicity into the home, and that's what your wife did. She is the one who needs to apologize for even the suggestion of her father coming back into your personal lives. That she's pregnant is not an excuse for the extreme breach of trust that she committed. Edit, some people are claiming that you are just as bad as your father-in-law? That's incorrect. Your father-in-law is a racist. You are opposing racism and keeping it out of your personal space. There is no moral equivalence. My estranged maternal grandparents tried to reconnect and reach out when they found out through a family member that I was pregnant. I blocked them on everything, and I never picked up because I said to myself, they wouldn't want to be in her life if she wasn't white. I know because they hate my biracial half-siblings, and they cut my bio mum out of their lives over it. Accepting a racist regardless of your relationship to them makes you 100% complicit in their beliefs. I remember my father making an equally stupid comment about the heritage of my adopted grandchildren. It was the last time parents were ever invited to our home. Not the a-hole. I was expecting to be calling you a butthole from the title, but your father-in-law is racist AF. Racism is non-negotiable. Your wife is willing to tolerate it because she gets it in theory, but she doesn't really. I look 100% white, but I'm not. My oldest daughter does not look white, and she is not my husband's biological child. If my in-laws had treated her any different than any other child in the family, they would be gone, and I would be out so fast if my husband thought that relationship was more important than a child's. If your father-in-law came to both of you and said that he has done the work and realized he was wrong, and shown that he meant it, that would be a completely different conversation, and you'd be the butthole, but that isn't what happened. Your wife is willing to tolerate a racist. Edit, since OP's comment got lost, here's what was said that day. Quote, basically when he met my son, he said, I wasn't expecting that, and asked, is his mum in prison? Which is so ironic. He asked me if his hair had even been washed, and if I was worried about him going to school on top of a bunch of other ignorant crap. After the dinner, when I confronted him, he said that it wasn't his fault because no one had prepared him, and I didn't seem like the type to mix with that sort of company. Everyone sucks here. I get you. I'd be mad too. I mean, what would happen down the line when her father is in the presence of both kids, but treats your son differently? I feel like your feelings of betrayal are valid at this moment, but I do think that it was a butthole move to call her less of a person. It's her father, and I get wanting to have him back in her life. You both could have had a more constructive conversation about this regarding expectations moving forward and her dad's behavior towards both kids. And now, onto the update. My wife and I went to couples counseling. When we called to book, there was one counselor that had a last-minute opening, and the rest had long waits. There was a reason for this. If you ever need to book a therapist, don't book the one with immediate availability. Anyway, so we went this morning. First and foremost, the therapist would not listen to us as we tried to explain why we were there. So much time was wasted because she kept insisting on talking and asking about topics that weren't what we needed to talk about. My wife and I both repeatedly tried to explain the issue, and the therapist kept saying, "The surface issue is rarely the problem. It's the issue underneath that." It took half an hour for us to get her to actually address what occurred. When she finally listened to us explain what happened, she said flat out that I was wrong, my wife was right. I need to apologize for what I said and accept that her dad would always be important to her and had a right to be in his grandchild's life. I'm pretty sure therapists are supposed to be a bit more neutral. Anyway, she could tell that I was irritated and asked what I was feeling. I said I felt deceived. I felt like my wife pretended to be someone, and now I'm meeting the real her. My wife started to cry, and the therapist said my answer was unproductive. I asked my wife, "Well, what about you? How do you feel?" She said she felt lost. She said she's lost her family one by one because they did things she couldn't accept. Realizing the child she was carrying would never know her biological family upset her, and it made her wonder if her standards are too high. The therapy people out isn't the answer. The therapist ended things, saying we have a lot of work to do, but could fix things. When we left, my wife said she was very opinionated for a therapist. I agreed. She asked if we could get a brunch and just talk, and I agreed to that too. We talked. I apologized for the way that I spoke to her. She apologized for keeping secrets from me. I told her that I would never be okay with her dad being part of our kids' lives. She said she understood. I also said that I thought that it was a bad idea to go back to the old company, but ultimately that's her choice. She said she was going to tell her dad that meeting the baby isn't on the table and then see his reaction and go from there. I thanked her for telling me. She asked me if I was thinking about leaving her. I was honest and if I loved her, and I said yes. I asked if she, and she said no. She hesitated, but I'm not trying to read into that. I feel that we made some progress and we will continue to work on our relationship without the terrible therapist and try to be our best for each other and for the children. In the comments, sounds like the therapist was the genius in this scenario. See her one time and you guys do what you weren't able to do before seeing her? I'm tempted to ask for a referral just in case I ever need it. My husband and I once saw a terrible couples therapist, and we ended up teaming up together against her. That was funny and helped, to be honest, but she was awful and we fired her. Lol? What issue could be underneath, "I don't want her racist dad to be in our child's life, and I'm mad that she had been talking to her racist dad behind my back"? Come on! I'm glad that you were able to talk it out, and hopefully you can keep the communication open. And hopefully her father will either change and become a better person or back off. And how the hell are you even going to get to the deeper issue if you don't even know the surface issue? You don't get to the bottom of a lake without breaking the surface. I know you love your wife, but please look out for your son. Her father's a racist. His racism won't negatively impact her or the child that you share, but it definitely will impact your son. I think she's saying what you want to hear at the moment, but I think this issue will come up again, especially after your baby is born. She gave up her family for you and your son. She is already starting to show signs of cracking. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually she starts to resent you and your son for her not being able to see her father or have her child grow up with a loving, albeit racist, grandfather. The person with the potential to be hurt the most is your son. I get that your marriage is important, but protecting your son is more important. Our next post is titled, "Am I the a-hole for pulling my daughter from a water park trip because her teacher made her stay with a kid that she doesn't like?" My daughter Bryn, female 9, is going on a trip to a nearby water park with her class next week. She loves water and has been talking about it for months, so I was a bit thrown off when she came home crying a few days ago and told me that she didn't want to go. I asked her why and she wouldn't tell me because she thought that I'd think that she's a bad person. When I finally coaxed it out of her, she said that her teacher, Miss N, had forced her to be the buddy of her classmate Ben for the entirety of the trip. She was to ride the bus with Ben to and from the trip, eat lunch with him, and go on all the rides with him instead of spending time with her friends. She then said that nobody likes Ben because he whines whenever they have to do work and picks his nose and wipes boogers everywhere. I was horrified, not only because Miss N had made Bryn do such a thing, but also because she had made her believe that she was a bad person for not wanting to. Unfortunately, this wasn't my first experience with Miss N, as she frequently used my soft-spoken, intelligent older daughter as a behavior buffer for the naughty boys until I threatened to report her to the superintendent. It is clear to me that Miss N is still too comfortable with enforcing archaic gender roles on her kids and forcing girls to do unpaid emotional labor for the sake of the boys. I immediately sent Miss N an email condemning her actions. She sent me back an email with a bunch of BS that basically ended with, "If Bryn goes on the trip, she has to be Ben's buddy." Fine. I informed her that Bryn would not be attending then. I immediately booked VIP tickets the same day that her class was going so she could still go to the park and see her friends. What happened next I wasn't expecting. Bryn's quite popular, so I've gotten to know a lot of the mums in her class. When I let them know what Miss N did, some of them were so horrified that they also pulled their kids out of the trip. In total, 8 kids, out of a class of 20, are either not going or are going with us. Today, I got an email from Miss N saying that because almost half of the class isn't going, they either have to raise the cost for the other students or not go at all. She practically begged me to let Bryn go and tell all the other parents to let their kids go, promising that she wouldn't make Bryn do anything that she didn't want to do. I told her that she should have thought about that before she tried to make my daughter do her job. My husband said that I was being a bit petty and that Miss N clearly feels bad about what she did, and I should let Bryn go as I've already gotten my way. He asked me if I really wanted to deprive children of what they've been waiting for all year. The thing is, if this wasn't Miss N's first offense, I probably would have agreed to. But she has a pattern of this type of behavior, and hopefully this will put a stop to it. Plus, if she has to explain this to her superiors, I have receipts. Is my husband right, or am I justified? In the comments, am I alone in suspecting that the teacher isn't so much feeling bad about what she did, but faintly terrified of either having to explain to her superiors why the trip is suddenly in jeopardy, or the backlash from other parents when it comes out why the trip she organized has fallen apart? Not to mention that if you've booked VIP tickets, I'm going to guess that if you did cancel your plans to suit her, you'd end up paying twice over. Once for the school tickets, and again for the VIP tickets that you've already bought. Not the a-hole. I'd stick with a simple, "Sorry, I've already committed to and paid for my own arrangements for that date now," with a possible, "unless" other parents ask, and you can actually rearrange without significant personal loss. No, I agree with this. OP's husband is wrong in his assertion the teacher feels bad. She feels bad that her plan to use OP's daughter backfired so spectacularly, and now looks as if she can't manage even the basics of a field trip. Yes, if OP backs down, the teacher will, at best, learn not to do this to OP's kid, but will learn no bigger lesson. At least if OP stands their ground, the school and other parents, including Ben's, have a faint chance of learning how poorly the teacher understands her job and what a disservice she's doing while there's still time to correct it. As a teacher who's worked with this kind of teacher, at best she will learn not to give advance warning. Her mistake, in her mind, was telling Bryn before the trip. She needs to feel the full weight of the consequences of her choices, or she will absolutely do it again to some other kid. OP, please also watch out for retaliation. Make sure your daughter knows that she can tell you absolutely anything at all. This is not her battle to fight, but you can't fight it if you don't know what's happening, so if she's ever uncomfortable at all, she shouldn't tell her parents. That's alarming if that's what's happened, and would be a whole other issue to address. I could definitely see this teacher saying, "It would be so nice of you the kids into groups of 4, where everyone could be with friends and still include Ben." She doubled down and tried to force her hand. I feel bad for these kids, not the a-hole. This would have been an amazing way for the teacher to foster inclusivity without saddling one student with the burden of being buddied with what sounds like a difficult student. It's sad that she didn't think of an approach like that. And now on to the update. Bryn was the only student assigned a buddy. The rest of the students were free to do what they wanted. Update 2. First, thank you for the support, everyone. Second, I have taken the issue, including screenshots of the emails, to admin. Several other parents also came forward with similar stories about Miss N using students, particularly female students, to do her job. Miss N has been placed on temporary leave while they figure out a more permanent solution. Personally, after hearing things from other parents about her, I would like to see her fired and blacklisted from ever teaching again, but I hope this at least scares her out of treating her students this way. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to go and ask to be adopted by the couple that she is so obsessed with? So my girlfriend Katie made a new friend months ago, Mary. Katie talked about her a lot. Mary said this, Mary did that, she started teaching her something, etc. I thought that it was a bit weird how much Katie seemed to look up to Mary, but I didn't think much of it until Mary's husband Joe entered the picture too. From then on, Katie talked about their relationship all the time, how they do things, how they divide the chores, how respectful they are to each other, basically how they are just the best couple ever. I've met them too, and they're honestly nothing special, maybe a bit on the boring side even. Yesterday evening, Katie was once again going on about them, saying things like Mary and Joe are true soulmates, and theirs is the healthiest relationship she had ever seen, blah blah blah. I had a really effing long day at work, so I told her that I didn't want to hear about them. I don't care about her creepy crush on this random-ass couple, but if she likes them so much, she should go ask them to adopt her, or ask if she can be their third. Katie then gave me the cold shoulder and left to go home to her apartment instead of sleeping at my place like she was supposed to. I need to know if I'm in the right and her obsession is creepy, or if I'm not seeing something right and I'm the butthole here. Am I the a-hole? In the comments, you're the a-hole. My friend, she's trying to tell you what she wants out of your relationship without hurting you or making you feel defensive. While you're not wrong and he is the a-hole, she needs to open her mouth and actually say what she wants. All of this hinting and subliminal messaging is not the way, and all it's doing is creating discord. He isn't picking up on these hints. All he sees is her constantly fawning over two people, and he doesn't get it even after meeting them. If she wants her boyfriend to change, then she needs to lay it out for him what she is looking for in a relationship. To be fair to Katie, a bunch of internet strangers read a second-hand account of what she said, and we got it. Well, none of that matters because her partner doesn't get it, and we are not the ones in a relationship with her, and to be honest, while I get it, if I was OP, I would be pissed as well because don't come in here comparing our relationship to some random couple, but actually never tell me what your actual needs are. All relationship dynamics are different, and all the stuff she's saying probably doesn't matter to OP, and until she says she needs/wants these things, he isn't going to get it because those things may not be important to him. She is not communicating with him, she is talking at him. She needs to say I want/I need, and then proceed. As opposed to, Joe does this, and Joe does that. He doesn't give a crap about Joe and Mary and what they do. Well, also, why couldn't OP come out and tell her that he didn't like the way that she talked about this couple so much? Instead, OP came back with rudeness and insults. Maybe if OP said, "It's odd that you talk about them so much. Why is that?" They could have had an adult conversation. Instead, OP goes with the old classic, "If you love it so much, why don't you marry them" technique. I agree. I also think that he was so rude because he knows damn well why she's talking about them all the time and realized he isn't living up to her expectations. Meh, OP not getting this very obvious clue puts a serious mental load on the girlfriend. Honestly, to the point of unfairness. Since you were all about making assumptions, I'm going to assume part of the reason the girlfriend is beating around the bush is because OP clearly doesn't handle things like that well, given how he snapped at her for talking about her friends. Also, I made her mad and upset and she went to sleep at her apartment instead of sleeping with me like she was supposed to? I don't know, that's a red flag in itself. Like, if I had an argument with a partner who has their own apartment, I'd likely say she went to her apartment for the night instead of staying with me like she was going to. The supposed to sounds a bit controlling, but it can also just be a translation or wording error on OP's part. I don't think he's consciously controlling, I just think he's an idiot. But you're my girlfriend, you're supposed to sleep with me. What's this all about? In the same way he probably thinks that, being the boyfriend, he's not supposed to actually treat her like a human being. He's supposed to exist for her to fawn over and jerk off emotionally, and probably also literally. Which is a controlling mindset, likely exhibited in his actions. And now on to the update. She finally texted me back. She wrote a long-ass message saying that she had tried everything with me and she thought that if she was patient and clear about her needs, I would eventually change for her. But she realized, thanks to Mary and Joe, that it's not her job to raise a man and get her boyfriends to respect her. She wrote a lot of other things about Mary too, like that Mary is truly proud of her husband and looks up to him. Meanwhile she, Katie, can't find it within herself to look up to me in anything and so on. So yeah, I hope you're all happy. You got what you wanted. Our next post is titled, I dropped my friend for dating a minor. So my 20-year-old friend, who is a junior in college, is dating a 17-year-old senior in high school. He insists they haven't nor will be physical until she's 18. They continue to talk 24/7 and they FaceTime each other for hours on end. Long story short, they're dating. The girl is young and obsessive. He is absolutely taking advantage of her naivety. I called him out on his behavior, and he refused to acknowledge that what he is doing is wrong. So I dropped him. It's so disappointing to lose someone you assumed was a decent person. The girl tried reaching out to me. Should I let her? I have a feeling she's just going to cuss me out. In the comments, I'm not sure what the rest of their story is, and if it's relevant to anything else, but as far as age gaps go, a 17-year-old who is a senior and a 20-year-old isn't really a big deal at all. OP says, all about personal morality, I suppose. I don't know where OP is located, but there are a lot of states in the USA where 17 years of age is the age of consent, meaning they can legally have sex with anyone older than them. In some states, it's 16. Oh my god, get over it. It's not that much of an age gap, Jesus. And you're asking if you should talk with her? If you think their relationship isn't okay, then how about you don't talk to a 17-year-old? Why is that even a question? I have a feeling that you were just jealous because you're acting weird. I know, right? He'll make his friend feel like a creep, and that frickin' sucks. You don't have to agree with it or be their friend. You should probably just cut ties with both if the relationship bothers you. You're allowed to have different morals than others. And OP says, I did. She wants to reach out to me to talk. I will be respectful and hear her out. Honestly, there is no need to talk to her. She's a teenager in high school. Now this thing your friend did is bringing you into a situation where you are socializing with a 17-year-old. It's time to exit and remove yourself. OP says, I'm 18, so it's not as huge of a deal, and me and her will be in the same graduating class at our uni, so I will hear her out, but if she starts going off on me, I will be blocking her. Makes sense. Didn't realize you weren't also 20. I still think that you don't owe either of them a convo necessarily, but whatever works. At least you got them thinking about it. And OP says, she was reaching out to me. I won't be contacting her afterwards, nor will I ever be contacting my previous friend. And now on to the update. So someone said that I should post the update with some info that I discussed in the comments. Firstly, I'm AFAB, and I have a boyfriend that I've been dating for 9 months. This friend is my boyfriend's roommate. That's how I know him. So how is he taking advantage of her? This friend confided in me that he is not attracted to this girl, he uses her as a therapist. How is she obsessive? She met him, and in 3 days she said she loved him. She also texted me saying she wanted me to stop texting him. Why did you cut him off? This wasn't the first thing he did. He called me dramatic for being in pain on my period. He constantly hit on me when he knew I was in a relationship with my boyfriend, his roommate. He would touch my boyfriend's ass without consent. He made jokes and comments about me and my boyfriend's sex lives. This was just the last straw. Final update. I promised an update and here I am. I genuinely had no idea how popular the original post would be, and I'm here to clarify some things that the general audience wanted to know about. Overall, I'd say the overwhelming majority of people were incredibly rude and condescending towards me. I never shamed my friend for being with the girl. I never told him that he was gross, nor did I tell him to break up with her to keep my friendship. I was only respectful towards him and to everyone who commented, despite dozens of commenters calling me names. Is this a fake post for attention? No, this post is not fake nor exaggerated. Believe me, I'm a much better writer and could create something much more entertaining than this. Of course, that vast majority of people won't and likely will not believe me, and that's okay. Why didn't you put in more context? I stupidly didn't think any of the inappropriate things my friend had done were relevant to the story. Is your update fake? No, everything I posted in my updates was 100% the truth. I apologize for not thinking it was important enough to put in my original post. Why were you friends with him if he did all these awful things? He's my boyfriend's roommate. I wanted to keep the peace. My mistake. Why doesn't your boyfriend move out if this guy is so awful? My boyfriend signed a lease for a year at his apartment. He's also anxious and a people pleaser. He doesn't want to make waves with his roommate. He's aware of the flirting and had told roommate to stop multiple times. Why is the sex jokes and ass touching such a big deal? I shouldn't have to explain why someone who makes jokes about my personal sex life makes me uncomfortable, and it honestly shocked me about the fact that almost everyone said this roommate was okay to touch and slap my boyfriend's ass, which my boyfriend is not comfortable with and has also told roommate to stop. Is the age gap really the reason you cut him off? Yes, this was the final straw for me. Are you in love with this guy? No. The idea of being with this creep genuinely makes my skin crawl. I adore my boyfriend, and the thought of leaving him makes me sick. Did you talk with the girl? Yes, she reached out to me, and I heard her out. All she did was apologize for tearing up our friendship. I reassured her that this was in no way, shape, or form her fault, nor do I blame or dislike her for the situation she is in. That was that. I will no longer be in contact with her. Overall, I slept for 5 hours because the stress of this post made my anxiety flare up. I cried for a good majority of 2 to 5 a.m. I even called my boyfriend at 4 a.m. to talk because I was so distraught. You may all call me weak-minded and a baby, and that's okay. This is simply how my brain processes emotions. I hope this update cleared things up for those of you who were curious. Have a good day. In the comments, your updates just changed the entire narrative. The age gap is now just a fraction of the entire picture. Most people here said that ending the friendship only because of the 3-year age gap would be an overreaction. You now saying that there was so much more to that basically supports this notion. Not sure why you left it out to begin with. Seems oddly convenient that you suddenly have so much more context that it's basically impossible to disagree with you. Update. She's actually 12 and he's 47 and they both have ties to white supremacy. This was just the last straw. Update. He actually microwaved and ate a baby. Sorry, forgot to mention that part. I should also add, he's a serial killer who tried to murder me in my sleep. And I forgot to mention how he's holding my family hostage now. I just wanted to add something insignificant. He drugged me and stole one of my lungs. And he leaves the toilet seat up after he's finished. That goddamn devil. I should add, he stabbed someone 37 times and ate that person's hands, and didn't think that he did anything wrong, so this was the last straw. Carl, that kills people. Our next post is titled, Should I, male 22, invite my parents, female 48 and male 50 to my wedding despite having cut them out of my life because they refused to stop their polyamorous relationship? To give some background, one day when I was 16, I was out with my friends at the mall when I caught my mom out with a man that I didn't recognize. He had his hand on her ass, and they were just walking out of the mall. I told my friend to follow their car, and I found him leading her into his house. At this point, I am freaking the F out. I'm thinking that my mother is having an affair, and I am literally shaking with fear. After I eventually catch them, I go off in a frenzy on her cheating on my father, and she frantically calls my father. Eventually, they both take me home and explain to me that they are in an open marriage. This just destroyed me, and I cried the whole night. I begged them to stop all of this for my sake. I just wanted them to be normal. I told them I couldn't stomach any of this. They stopped for a little while, but then about a month later, started again. From that point forward, I couldn't look at my parents in the eyes. I wanted to vomit every time I saw them going out of the house alone, and on one day, when I saw my mother dressed up nicely and going out alone, I just started bawling out and crying, and after I calmed down a bit, she went anyway. She didn't come home all night. The whole thing just changed how I viewed my parents, and the more that I was around them, the less I wanted to be. With this in mind, after that day, my relationship with them just ground to a stop. I had to mentally completely disconnect from them in an effort not to go into depression. My only goal became to get out of my house as fast as I could. We basically completely stopped talking, and I spent as little time as possible at home. Thus, after graduation, I decided to leave and cut them out of my life. They tried to stop me, telling me they are happy this way. I said that every night one of them was gone, I cried. They told me they wanted me to be happy and that this was the only way they could continue to be together. And I said that I couldn't be happy if I continued to be in their life. Eventually, my father says that it was none of my business what they did in their bedroom, and I said it's no longer their business who I choose to associate with. All of this matters because, well, this was some 4 years ago after I left, and I just proposed to my fiancé. Then I got a call from them, and while I usually never pick up, I did this day. We talked normally, and they asked me about my fiancé. They have met her. We are high school sweethearts, and I told them. She asked if it would be okay if me and my fiancé came to visit. I said I couldn't. I know they are still having sex with other people, and the memories just won't go away. Every time I talk with her or think about it, I just want to gouge out my eyes. Then she asked if it would be okay if they came to the wedding. I said I'd think about it. My fiancé has said maybe it's time to let them back into my life. Nevertheless, maybe it's their right as my parents to attend my wedding. Should I let them? Edit, just for some clarifications. I'm not malicious against them, I just don't want them to be part of my life anymore. If they want to do what they want to do, fine. I'm doing this because my fiancé says it's time that I try to reconcile. She knows how deeply I don't want to, and she said that at the end of the day it's my choice, but she has also asked me to try and make a change, if I'm ready. I love her, and for her sake, I will try. I'm not particularly religious, as I question my religion all the time. I do go to communion, as my grandparents used to take me all the time, but I'm not even sure there is a God. But if you make me put it on paper, I would put down Catholic. Other stuff about me, I'm a pre-medical student, and I'm paying my own way through college. Everyone is saying it's their life. Great, and I'm not stopping them from living it. I don't try to stop them, and the only time I did was the 2 weeks after I found out. I just don't want them in my life. That's all it is. And look, this is the best I got. You telling me to grow up ain't helping. Second edit. I don't get this. Maybe this was the wrong platform for this? Nevertheless, I've had some very kind people reach out to me, but I think I need to just give some more info that might help everyone figure out what I am thinking. Just stand in my shoes for a moment. Imagine you were told, family is everything, and you go your whole life thinking that this is what family is. You see your parents together, and you think they are like 99% of the families out there. And then one day you find out this isn't the case at all, and you find out abruptly. Your entire concept of a monogamous marriage collapses. And then, instead of trying to help their son figure this out, they tell you that you are overreacting. You can't breathe. You want to leave the car. They won't let you. They keep driving. You think your windpipe is closing, so you jump out of the car, and then they yell at you for jumping, and then they take you home. And then while in the middle of having a panic attack, you see your mother put on lipstick, and then you think to yourself that she's going back. You beg that just for a little while for her to stay. She says she will. She calms you down, and then a little bit later, you see her leave. And then you go to your room. Who do you tell about this? Who do you talk to? You cry and cry and cry, and no one listens. No one comes, and no one says anything. The next morning, you see that your mother isn't home, and then all those days when they weren't home comes colliding in. When I had baseball practice, was my father really busy? What about on my birthday? I taught myself how to shave. I taught myself how to ride a bike. I taught myself to basically even drive. But they had time to have sex with others. And then everyone the next day pretends that everything is normal. To you, these people aren't the people they said they are. They are laughing and going about their day like everything is normal. You eat your toast and you push it down thinking, "Don't think about it. Don't think about it." You see everything now, and nothing makes sense. You see them leave, and you cry. You beg them to stop, and for a little while they do, but then it all starts again. And for the next 2 years, you live in your car, you live on your friend's couch or in school, because you're scared that if you go back, you'll have a panic attack. You feel like a stranger in your own home. You don't recognize those people. They lied to you about this. What else did they hide? Update/third edit. After talking to some people in the chat, it's obvious that even if I don't go to therapy for my parents, I need to go for my fiancé. I don't think that I will let them back in my life completely, but after talking to another Redditor and my fiancé's insistence, I will call them to arrange for a meeting in a coffee shop. I want to write down everything that I want to say to them, so in case I freeze, I can ensure that I know what I want to get across. She will be with me, of course, so hopefully I will have some support there. In the comments, it sounds like you're less mad about their choice to be polyamorous, and more that their choice meant they weren't there for you at pivotal moments in your life like birthdays, sports games, and rites of passage like shaving. I think people might be reacting negatively because you appear to be judging their personal relationship choices, which are obviously none of your business. But after reading all of your edits, it seems that it was more that your trust in them that was broken. That once you were aware of this relationship dynamic, you started to look back on certain events in your life where they were absent and felt that their relationship needs outside of your immediate family had been prioritized over you, their son. These seem like valid feelings to me. Have you spoken to them about it in this way? Or do they see your issue as more judgmental and not accepting of polyamory in general? Have they made any amends with you? Have they reached out before now? I don't know if you should feel like they have to be invited to your wedding, but I think if you want anything to improve, or for there to even be a possibility for reconciliation, then you all need to sit down together with a professional, therapist or similar, and have an honest discussion about the reason for the hurt. And they need to be able to share their experience and reasons too. I wish you the best of luck in your journey, especially for your marriage. Marriage takes work. The best advice I can give you, as someone who is about to celebrate 14 years of marriage and 3 kids, is that people change. Life comes at you, experiences shape you, change together. Support each other in those moments where life forces change, where experiences alter your perspective, where reality holds up a mirror and makes you realize you want to change certain things. And keep talking. Keep having fun in the small moments together. Don't wait till the story is told in 10 years to laugh about the hard things or the plans that went awry. Celebrate each other's wins, mourn each other's losses, and encourage each other's failures. If you're not already, you absolutely need to see a therapist. It's clear that this issue is still as fresh as it was when you initially found out, and holding on to that feeling isn't good to you. I'm not saying that you have to forgive them or hate them, but you need to find a healthier way to deal with this problem. As for the wedding, it's ultimately your decision. It might be hard for you to have that special moment without your parents, but it sounds like having them around right now would also ruin the day for you. Personally, I think your wedding should be about you and your fiancé, so you need to decide together what is best for you as a couple. And now on to the update. Last few words, as I couldn't add to the other post after it got deleted or something. I have had a long talk with my fiancé, and I do need therapy. Also, I will not be inviting them to my wedding for everyone's sake. Nevertheless, I am making this last post after I wrote something in my reply to another comment that I think helps contextualize what I wanted to say here, but couldn't the first time. In a direct message, it was suggested to me that I post this as a standalone post. Why? I do not know. Maybe cathartic release? Maybe because the people who reached out to me thought that this would do some good? I do not know. But here it goes. What hit me the hardest was 4 things. 1. My entire life, my parents led me to believe that the reason they couldn't come to my games, sometimes miss my birthday, or didn't have time to teach me how to ride a bike and drive was because they were making these massive sacrifices. When I asked why mum wasn't home or dad wasn't home, they used to tell me that they were working late. When I found out, it clicked in my head. They had the time, they just didn't want to spend it with me. How many nights did I have to make my own dinner? How many times did I tell my teachers my parents were late to pick me up because they were busy at work? How many of them knew what was actually happening? It's not a large town. They knew, I'm sure. 2. When I figured it out, they were not there for me. When I needed them the most, they left me in my room to cry it out. The one moment that will be forever burned into my brain, that and of course finding my mother on that couch with that strange... The couch! After I found out and we got home, I was having a panic attack. My fingers were crossing up, I was hyperventilating, I couldn't move my limbs, my windpipe felt like it was closing, my lips and tongue went numb, and my vision was getting black spots to appear in front of it. In that moment, I saw my mother looking at the mirror and putting on lipstick. We had just gotten home from me having caught her with another man in his house, an image that troubled me so deeply that I had just jumped out of her car because the situation had made it hard for me to breathe. In the midst of this panic attack, she was preparing to go back. After I calmed down, I begged, on my knees, gripping her legs, tears literally rolling down my cheeks, for her to stay. She promised she would, but then she left. I watched her walk out an hour, maybe 2, after the promise she made to me. She went back to his house, and I knew what was happening there. She didn't come home all night, and I just cried the whole time. You heard me, Dad. I know you did. You let me down when I needed you. This hit me so hard. I meant nothing to them. I genuinely thought that I was going to die, but she would rather spend that time with him. I always viewed my mother as caring, but that's because she never had to give anything up for it. When I asked her to stay, she had a choice to make, to show me she loved me and to be there, or to get her carnal desires fulfilled. She chose the latter, and it was devastating. 3. My whole life, they told me to focus on my studies. They told me that I shouldn't date. My mother said this especially, as it would affect my grades. They sold me on the idea that a marriage is between a man and a woman. And then one day, I find my mother bent over a sofa wearing my outfit with my dad's just kidding, bent over a sofa, getting nailed by a stranger, and everything fell. It made no sense. And they just said, well, this is who we are. Accept it. These people never even gave me the sex talk. I was so ashamed of myself that when I was young, I confessed I masturbated once, and my mother lost it on me. I was so ashamed of myself my whole life. Then I found out one day that their carnal desires are blessings, but mine are sins. 4. The last thing was that they never stopped for me. I got them to stop for a month, barely. But even then I'm lying about that. They just made it much more discreet. I know they visited them when I was at practice, but that's just a gut feeling. I begged them that I couldn't handle this, just to please, please, please stop this, but they didn't. After a month, it was back to normal, but this time they just went about it like nothing happened. First edit. This took some self-reflection and a little too much time to dig out memories that I had blocked out. Also, if you know cheap therapy options, please send those to me. Third edit. Everyone is sending me direct messages saying that I shouldn't reconnect with my parents and that my fiancé shouldn't be pushing me to reconnect with them. She isn't. Not anymore. Not since I've sort of explained all of this. If anything, she has told me that I shouldn't, and maybe it's best if I leave that door closed. I want to see them again. I want to read them exactly what I wrote above, but in first person and look them in the eyes while doing it. In the comments, no. Let your wedding day be about you and your partner. You don't want to be worrying about your parents on a day that should be full of joy and set yourself up for more disappointment if they let you down again. This is a good rule of thumb for any large event where the focus is on a person or a couple. Weddings, funerals, graduations, etc. Never feel like you have to invite somebody because of who they are or once were. The stress and worry isn't worth it. Have you looked into mental health therapy? I wish you well in your new life. Going no contact for now will help with your healing. They are who they are, and that's not going to change. Now that you're an adult, it's not about them anymore. It's about developing your own path. Open communication is key with your partner, and lean on each other for support, value each other's feelings, and prioritize each other. If there are unresolved issues with your core beliefs in your relationship, then address them now and solve it before you marry. Try not to ever go to bed angry. Sometimes it takes crappy parents to make you determined to be a great one. Amen to that. I hope that you'll get the opportunity one day. No rush though. I cut my mum out. My mum, who relied on me as a second parent to 4 younger siblings after dad left, who switched us and took a knife to one of my little brothers when I was packing a day before moving to Europe, not knowing if I would ever come back to the States. She said she wanted a visit. I'm frantically packing, but okay. She comes over, ditches the kids on me, and takes a 4-hour nap. While I'm trying to pack for a move to a place I might never come back from. I don't think I'll invite her to my wedding, if that ever happens, and I may not go to her funeral. Your parents were too busy being focused on their sex lives to be parents. Don't invite them. Cut them out. You nailed it. It's absolutely nothing to do with polyamory, and absolutely everything to do with being unkind, callous, and unsupportive. Who, at a point of massive trauma to their child, not only lies to them, but then walks out the door whilst their child is crying on their hands and knees, begging them not to leave. Seriously? It's screwed up. My boyfriend got mad that I only spent $20 on him for a date. So I, 24 female, went out on a date with my boyfriend, 24 male, recently, in celebration of our 1-year anniversary. Money has been running tight recently since my boyfriend was fired from his job for showing up high. I knew he was really upset about the whole situation, so I wanted to cheer him up, and I thought taking him out to dinner for our 1-year anniversary, which was coming up, was the perfect way to do so. I took my boyfriend to one of my favorite restaurants from my childhood. It wasn't a high-end restaurant because I make like 1/3 of what he used to make, but nevertheless, he loved the interior design of the restaurant and the food. We were having a great time until the waitress came and told us our combined bill was going to be a little under $45 after tax and tip. My boyfriend looked at me weirdly, but I thought I imagined it, so I ignored him and I paid the bill. After the waitress left to go get a box for our takeouts, he turned and asked, "So that's how much you value our relationship after 1 whole year of being together?" I was confused and he said, "You only spent $40 on our 1-year anniversary date." I asked, "What's wrong with that? And plus, the prices were printed on the menu." And he said, "You were supposed to pay. Why would I have looked at the prices? And every time we went out, I always spend hundreds of dollars on you." I didn't respond because I didn't want to cause a scene, and he raised his voice and said, "I see how it is. I'm only worth $20 to you." Then he left the table and told me that I can take an Uber home. I feel really bad, and I apologized many times, but he's still mad at me, understandably, and things have been awkward. In the comments, Your last line almost broke my heart. He has no reason to be mad at you, let alone understandably. I have been married for 8 years, and I wouldn't care if we went to our local taqueria for Taco Tuesday dollar tacos. It's not about the meal, but the time that you spend together. Ditching you at a restaurant as a punishment for you not paying enough for his dinner is a huge red flag. Not to mention his decision-making ability that not only had him show up high to work, but so high that they could tell and fire him. Just ask yourself if you want to always be walking on eggshells to avoid getting stranded by him whenever you guys are hanging out together if you say the wrong word or do the wrong thing. The understandably got to me too. It is not understandable that she apologized and thinks that his anger is justified. He has completely gaslit her. Exactly. It's especially not understandable for him to literally ditch her at a restaurant and want to get an Uber home. And this isn't his birthday. This is their anniversary. What did he do for her? So he gets fired for going to work high, isn't currently working, your finances are tight, yet you still decided to spend $50 on an anniversary night when I'm guessing that amount of cash is a hell of a lot right now. Sorry, but he sounds like an unappreciative ass. Don't forget that he left her there to Uber a car, costing even more money. You apologized? And I guess since he's got no job, you're now buying his drugs too. Most of the comments here are very good, but this one here is on point. I'm not normally one to suggest breaking up and divorces on these types of posts, but I really think you need to evaluate the last year that you've spent with this guy. You are supporting and enabling destructive behavior and getting emotionally abused by this guy. You celebrated your anniversary with him, paid the bill, and he still dumped you at the restaurant to make your own way home. Please ask yourself, is this in any way normal behavior in your relationship? I'm not going to belabor the drug use. It speaks for itself in this case. You are not married to him, thankfully, and I'm going to presume no children, hopefully. My advice for you is to look back at the past year and decide if this is really what you want for yourself. It is true that people can change, but not always, and often not for the better. I certainly hope the best for you. And now, onto the update. First off, I just want to thank everyone for the overwhelming amount of support and private messages. I have read them all, and it warms my heart how caring internet strangers can be. I just ended my relationship with my boyfriend. I'll try to keep this post as short as possible and try to refrain my emotions from seeping through. I can forgive him for showing up high at work and losing his job. Everyone makes mistakes. But recently, he's made it real clear that he won't be trying to find another job in the near future, so I know our relationship isn't going to be sustainable. Also, I'm not a drug user myself, but I've always been okay with him using it from time to time. But recently, all he does is get himself high in front of the television, and he's stopped taking care of himself, and I am really, really scared for him. I'm scared his body can't handle it. He's still icy with me about our last date, and probably because the drugs cloud his mind, and we haven't really had a real conversation since then. I decided to formally end things, and I phoned his parents and told them about his condition, and right now he's living with them, and I hope they can help him better than I can. In the comments, whether it's high-end or low-end, anyone who focuses on the dollar signs instead of whether or not you enjoyed the other person's company isn't someone you want to date. Agreed. Why are some people so obsessed with how much their partner spends on them? A date with your partner should be about spending quality time with each other, which in itself doesn't cost a single dollar. And if you're doing something like eating out, which costs money, all the better if you're able to enjoy yourselves without breaking the bank. Quote, I feel really bad, and I apologized many times, but he's still mad at me, understandably. I don't understand how his behavior was understandable at all. If you're upset loudly or confidently enough, you can gaslight your partner into thinking they really have done something unreasonable. In my opinion, reasonable person's thought process is, oh wow, they are really upset. That must mean I've done something really wrong and I need to recalibrate my social graces compass. It's wrong, but we are social creatures and it's kind of how we work. That's why it's so good when people post in these forums and have their underlying feelings validated. Have a few different people throughout your life act like this, and you don't know up from down, and don't even think to yourself that you are being mistreated. You think that's just how people are. Takes a long time for people to unlearn that walking on eggshells once you've internalized it deeply. I'm glad that OP got out. Why are these women's standards in the frickin' core of the earth? Something in their history. They were never taught that they were and are valuable and didn't have to put up with crap. Sometimes this is a step up from what they've experienced, sadly. The other aspect is that they are too involved and cannot see the wood for the trees. They may not listen to friends and family due to potential bias. Our next post is titled, "My 34 male, stepdaughter 19 female, and I are very close. Her boyfriend 20 male doesn't like that." Alright, so let's get the obvious out of the way. Yes, she calls me dad. I've been in her life since she was 11. Yes, the age difference is weird for a lot of people. My wife is 40 and she had a kid. Sue me. Lastly, I am in no way attracted to my daughter. She's a pretty girl, but that's my kid. This is not a fetish post. Now we can begin. My daughter and I are very close. She had never had a decent male figure in her life at the time that I met her, and I knew that if I wanted to pursue a relationship with my now wife, that I should do everything I could to fill the role. So I did. I helped with homework, I played games with her, watched shows or YouTubers she was into, read her favorite books, etc., because I wanted to build a solid relationship with her. Turns out, if you treat things like they're important sometimes, they go well. She and I spend a lot of time together, and our family doesn't really have big touch barriers, so hugs, cheek kisses, sometimes she'll use me as a pillow, etc. All of this is very common, and she does the same with my wife. "I love you" is probably said 50+ times a day in my house. We are affectionate. That is the picture that I'm trying to paint here. Very recently, she started dating. Her boyfriend doesn't appreciate that we're comfortable with expressing our affection toward each other, even going so far as to ask me to tone it down when he's around. In private, my daughter doesn't know this yet. I want to respect my daughter's new relationship because this is a new and exciting thing for her, and I am genuinely happy for her. But I also don't want to lose the connection that I've spent so long building, and I don't think I should be made to pretend it's less important to me just because she's dating someone that happens to be a little insecure. I can understand where the guy is coming from, but I don't think he really has a right to interject here. The dilemma is this: should I tone it down as requested? Should I continue on as normal? Or should I tell my daughter about the request and let her handle it however she sees fit? Honestly, not sure what the right move is. Edit, couple of things. 1. How the hell did I leave out "and I" in the title of the post? Ugh. 2. I should make it clear that I do not initiate the majority of physical contact in my household. I initiate probably 20%-ish with my stepdaughter and maybe 40% with my wife. 3. This particular thing happened after she asked me what I wanted from a restaurant that I hadn't been to. I asked to see the menu, and instead of throwing her literal brand new phone, she hopped in my lap and handed it to me, made suggestions, etc. This is totally in line with how we act normally. Edit 2. A lot of people are getting stuck on the lap thing. So let me be perfectly clear here. I don't ever initiate this. It is always on her. If she's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with her. Because of this, the second she stops being comfortable, it'll never happen again. I am also aware this is outside what many people would consider to be the norm. If you fall into this category, I already hear you and I do not care. That wasn't the point of the post, though it seems like we've gone a ways past that already. And whether you think it's creepy or whatever else is irrelevant to us, the people who are participating. In the comments, first of all, you are her father, and he's just a guy that she started dating. If he has any problems, then he needs to address this with her, not going behind her back and talking to you. Each family is different, and he needs to understand that. Maybe talk with your wife first if you need to tell someone, and talk with your daughter and let her sort it out. Yes, OP, please notify your daughter about the situation. As of now, the boyfriend is dating your daughter, not you. She'll need to decide on how she'll handle the situation and just support her in whatever she decides to do. Also, it's very effed up that the boyfriend would basically ask a father to show less affection towards his daughter. To me, that's grimy. I agree. The fact that he does talk to you first shows that he doesn't think of you as an authority figure like a father. If you were 50 with a beer belly and a grey beard, he wouldn't be insecure about you being affectionate. He sees you as a peer. And OP says, maybe he does. It felt like a jealousy thing to me last night. I am youngish and take care of myself, so I wouldn't really be surprised. But it's not like I'm going to change who I am or my family dynamics on account of some dude that might not be around beyond next week. Your daughter needs to be aware of what her boyfriend is doing behind her back. That's weird as hell. I can't imagine the size of the balls on some little boy going to a father and stepfather of a girl he just started dating and telling him anything other than I promise to not hurt your daughter. I can assure you, that level of cockiness would get your ass whipped in most areas I've ever lived. Is it weird that your 19-year-old stepdaughter crawls in your lap? Yes, but the boyfriend handled it poorly as well. He should have just said that this isn't the lifestyle I'm comfortable with and moved on. The fact that he wants to put you and your behavior in place and take over as some kind of authority figure and isn't ballsy enough to tell his girlfriend is as much as the biggest red field of flags there is. I think you need to sit her down and explain to her his intent, which we all see is terrifying and controlling. I wonder if all the weird incest porn has skewed people's perceptions of things. This is exactly my point. Distorting what a genuine, loving parent-to-child relationship should be. I'm 30, and I have never toned down my affection with my stepdad. He's my dad. It's weird to think of affection being anything past that. Both my dads are technically my stepdads. One raised me from infant to 9 years old, Mum remarried at 11. Both her husbands I call dad. Both I am still over-affectionate with. Hell, when I was pregnant, stepdad number 2 slept in bed with me the last week before I went into labor, so if I did go into labor, I didn't have to walk up the stairs to go get him. Mind you, we aren't 14 years apart in age, but still, if it's a father relationship, it's a father relationship. Just do it to him too. I bet he doesn't get hugged a lot. A lot of guys don't really get much physical contact like hugs. You never know how his family is with stuff like this. And now onto the update. I had quite a few people ask for an update on the last post, despite it getting slightly derailed, so here it is. I spoke with my daughter the next evening after she came home from work. Her boyfriend was at the house at the time. He was over for dinner and had picked her up. I pulled her aside for a couple of minutes and let her know what happened. She was surprised because she's already had this talk with her boyfriend. She said she would handle it and left. A little while later, I called them in for dinner. After she finished eating, she confronted him. I'm paraphrasing because she told a story, but this is basically what she said. So, my dad told me what you said, and I wanted to wait until after dinner to bring it up. I didn't have a good childhood. My biological father treated my mum horribly, and after she left him, he never contacted me again. Her next big relationship was worse. It seemed fine on the outside, but there was a lot of emotional abuse and controlling behavior. I was caught up in it too. And then this guy came along. I was obviously skeptical at first. He looked like trouble to me. He was making my mum happy, but I was an icy cow to him because bad men were all that I'd ever known. He asked me questions for over a year trying to get to know me, and I shut him out. One day when I was reading, he asked me what book it was. I didn't even answer him. I just lifted it up so he could see the cover. It was Island of Shipwrecks in the Unwanted series. He said, "That looks pretty cool. What's it about?" And for the millionth time, I didn't answer. Maybe 2 weeks later, he asked me if I was finished with the book, and I said, "Yeah, why?" And he said, "Well, I read the other 5. I thought you might let me borrow it so I can catch up and we can talk about it." I thought he was lying through his teeth, so I asked him questions about plot points and characters. Not a single wrong answer. So I went to my room and got the book for him. It's kind of a dumb story, but you have to understand something. My dad is the first man who was ever nice to me, and I gave him plenty of reasons not to be. He was patient and thoughtful, and he never pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I will always be grateful for that. Bottom line is that I love my dad, and the only people who have a say in our relationship is us. If you feel threatened because we're close, that's not going away, ever. I like you, I have fun with you, but if you think I'll change my relationship with my dad for you, then you've made a mistake. If you're too insecure to handle the fact that I'm close to my dad, this isn't going to work out. If you can handle it, I would love to have you around. Otherwise... He kind of interrupted her here and said, "It's not just because you're close. I get that he's good to you and your mum, and that's great, but have you seen the guy?" Referring to OP describing himself as 8 or 9 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale. Yes? What about it? It just makes it really weird for me. I don't know how to explain it other than that. You're way closer to your dad than anyone I've ever met, and it's a little creepy when you take it into account that he looks like he could be a "what are you doing, stepdaughter" kind of guy. Look, there's apparently 2 people at this table. For context, it was the 2 of them, my wife and myself at the table, who think my dad is Fabio, and it's really weird that you're one of them. Choosing time is over. The door is that way. Do not call or text me anymore. So that's pretty much how it went down. After he left, she cried for a few hours in her room. When she finally came out, it was around midnight or so, and she sat next to me on the couch. I asked her if she was worried that that would be a constant problem, and if she wasn't comfortable with how things are, I can understand and respect that. She hugged me very tightly and just replied, "Don't be dumb." So I guess everything's alright. I also thought that it was kind of funny, disrespectful but funny, that she had this big story planned out. I got some rom-com vibes from it personally, but it was her first boyfriend, so she has no experience having big talks. And the guy has just completely disregarded it. Obviously, empathy and understanding are not his strong points. I feel bad for my daughter because it was her first relationship, but I think she dodged a bullet. In the comments, very much a rom-com vibe as you stated at the end, but I am so glad you have such a close relationship with your stepdaughter. It is much more common to see posts here about issues between step-parents and children. She sounds like she's growing into a wonderful woman, and you and your wife should be very proud. OP says, she reads and watches a lot of rom-com, manga, and anime, so I imagine that's where she's picked it up. She doesn't really have a frame of reference for big, important talks unless it's from me, and during those, I usually throw in an anecdote. Maybe it's my fault. One of my secret loves is rom-com. Devil Wears Prada is my favorite, but I do really enjoy the manga and anime too. Hopefully she doesn't feel too embarrassed to watch it with you. OP says, not at all. We're a very progressive household overall, very open about everything, sex positive, etc. So raising her in that way took a lot of the inherent weirdness out of that kind of stuff. I like how everything was handled by you two. What impressed me the most was your stepdaughter, not changing who she is for some guy. Very mature of her, this being her first relationship. Kudos to the both of you. OP says, I was surprised myself. She often talks about how she wants a connection with someone, and I was worried that if red flags popped up, she would overlook them in favor of that. It's probably because of you. You showed her how she should be treated, respected, and valued. You were a good male role model in her life, and probably helped heal her past relationship trauma with your patience and respectful approach to her. Damn, OP, you read 5 books just to try to crack that girl's shell? You did good. Rooting for your family. You guys sound wholesome AF. Ex-boyfriend can go kick rocks. And OP says, that's just the first thing I brought to her attention, honestly. Before that, I did things like paying attention to what she ate during dinner so I could make those things more often. When she came home from school, I would coincidentally be watching a show that I knew she liked. Stuff like that. But they went mostly unnoticed. I figured that maybe all that was ever tangible were the questions I'd asked, so I thought that I'd bring some attention to my actual efforts. And that's where I'm going to end today's story, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.